if you were walking down the street and you saw a vending machine that said haircuts $1 when there's a hole and you put your head in that hole, are you going to do that? I mean, if your head is exactly the same shape as the next person, maybe you get a decent haircut, but maybe you end up missing an ear or something. So that's sort of the way the legal stuff operates too. And I encourage folks to really learn and understand the nuances of the legal stuff that applies to them. And, again, I'm here to educate and inform as well as do for you.
Welcome to PodBiz, the money behind the mic, where we get into the business of podcasting. I'm Norma Belenky, a podcast and media strategist.
And I'm Kiernan. I'm a podcast producer, and we're asking the question that's on everyone's mind. Where is the money in podcasting?
Each week, we talk with podcast industry professionals, marketers, and creators who are turning podcasts into a thriving business and making the industry what it is today.
With real revenue, real strategies, and real results.
If you're looking to grow or scale your show, and of course monetize, you're in the right place.
So let's get down to PodBiz.
Today, we're joined by Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. Gordon is an entertainment and media lawyer and a fellow podcaster. Today, we'll be speaking about how to set yourself up legally for your podcast, how to avoid common pitfalls, and what Gordon advises for independent creators. We'll also be joined by my PodBiz co-host, Kiernan. Let's get down to PodBiz. Today, we're chatting with Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer who is a lawyer, entrepreneur, and podcaster. Gordon, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Nice to be here.
We're so excited to have you. And John, my co-host, has joined us here today as well.
Thank you for having me on my show and your show.
We'll redo that maybe in post.
Yeah.
John.
No, I'm just kidding. It's exciting to be on. I know the three of us have been in this industry for quite some time, so it's awesome to get the chance to chat with you guys, and especially too about, where the money in podcasting is, and even more for you, Gordon, speaking about ways that podcasters can watch out with not wasting money or not losing money, because the other side of gaining it is keeping it. So.
Absolutely. And John is involved in every episode. He just might not be in front of the mic or camera. So John, do you want to ask the $1 million question?
Sure. So Gordon, the $1 million question that we ask everybody when they come on the show, where is the money in podcasting?
That's bigger than $1 million question. The money in podcasting, I think actually is, in using podcasting as a marketing tool to sell your products and services, your stuff, whether it's coaching or courses or physical products, whatever it is. A podcast is a great, that free top of the funnel kind of a way of getting people to start to know, like, and trust you. And then when you've done that, you can nurture a relationship with a customer until they purchase your products and become a part of your world.
Absolutely. And Gordon, you've been involved in the podcasting industry for a long time, and you've consulted a lot of businesses within podcasting on the legal side of it. So first off, we're going to talk about that in a minute and getting legal with podcasting and all of that. But first off, tell us how you got into the podcasting industry.
Well, I actually, my long backstory is, as a young child, I got exposed to live theater and really excited by the technical wizardry that goes into that. And I sort of pursued that all the way into my professional adult life, working in theater in high school and professional theater, and starting college as a theater major, from where I pivoted briefly into journalism and then into radio, television, and film. So the progression into sort of that area happened. And then becoming a lawyer really only came to me late in my college career, when a professor pulled me aside and pointed out an aptitude that I hadn't noticed. And when I sort of got off the floor from laughing hard, I thought hard about it and did decide to go to law school eventually. And out in the real cold, hard world, I was looking for ways to market my practice, and I was doing blogging when blogging was brand new, and email newsletters. And I just, Leo Laporte started doing a podcast when things at Tech TV started going in a different direction. And I saw that happening, and I thought, that's cool. I could do that. I was a sound guy, so I knew microphones and gear. And I just decided to look into it a little bit and got invited to be a guest on a couple of people's shows. And pretty soon I was hooked. It was an easy way to get content out regularly for the value of SEO. So became a podcaster first, and then in order to, as a good lawyer, I wanted to do some due diligence and make sure I was doing things right. My practice has always been entertainment and media law, so I kind of knew the ropes, but I wanted to make sure that this podcasting thing was not too different, and it turns out it is different in a lot of ways. And so I ended up researching all that to scratch my own itch, and that became a book, The Podcast Blog and New Media Producers Legal Survival Guide. And when you write a book, you become an expert. So it just made sense to pursue that as my focus area for clients and things like that. So
what would you say in general would be maybe the top 2 or 3 differences that you saw from the time in media kind of post podcasting and what you see in the podcasting industry? Because I think that what a lot of people see is when they go from, let's say, radio or visual media into podcasting, there's a lot of, well, because it's a download, technically this is legal or not legal. And I think that's where a lot of the financial problems can come through, because you have a lot of people who then turn around and go, well, now if we're in a lawsuit or before we do all that, there's some differences that might help people from that perspective too.
Yeah, I like to say it's a different medium, so there are some different rules. The folks who come from radio all operate on the assumption that you can use the music you want just like they do on the radio, because radio stations pay a blanket license for music to ASCAP and BMI or whatever country you're in. There's these performing rights societies. Well, those societies don't regulate or have a right to license for downloadable media or interactive media. So podcast, because you can stop and start it and because you can download the file, it's not just like an ephemeral radio broadcast. So that's a big mistake that the radio folks make. And folks that are just making assumptions that it's like radio. Also, because it's an evergreen format, we have to be a little more concerned about the liability kinds of things that can hang out over there. Defamation, privacy claims, the copyright infringements, those kinds of things, because they're there for as long as you leave the files accessible. And again, in the ephemeral radio broadcasting world, if it went by and nobody noticed, you kind of get away with things. Not so much when it's something that can be downloaded and there's a permanent record. So there's that. And, the other things are more issues of just not knowing to follow best practices in the media production world. Folks who come into podcasting and YouTube as well often don't have any training in media journalism, those kinds of things. And so they miss essential steps, or they overlook things like business structures and relationships. And it's fun. It's like a hobby. I've got a barn, let's put on a show, those kinds of things. So what I try to do is educate and inform creators so they can maximize their impact and influence and income without getting burned by lawsuits and threats and nastiness.
Absolutely. And, Gordon, in terms of, that expertise that you bring and developing your book and becoming that subject matter expert, bringing that media expertise into podcasting, what would you say is maybe a key move or metric or even a mindset that you've had that's made the biggest impact on you becoming the podcast lawyer?
For me, the mindset that I adopted is, as a lawyer, I just want to do my best and protect and help my clients. One of the things I realized about this community, the podcasting community, certainly the creator community, is it's very bootstrap driven, seat of the pants. And a lot of times there's just not a lot of resources out there to hire lawyers to get everything set up and protected. I realized pretty early on that I wanted to make something that was more accessible for those folks that can't or aren't interested in hiring lawyers to do it for them. Show them how to do it and let them do it themselves. So I've got courses and things like that. So that's been sort of my part of my business model, I guess I would say. There's the done for you and the done with you. And
so there's something for everyone in kind of every budget. Because a lot of creators are like, okay, I'm making this podcast on the weekend. I'm a hobbyist, but maybe I have a co-host. What does an agreement look like? And you've got some amazing templates for that. So we've got a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to check out Gordon's offerings or even just get a free template to put some legal structure around your podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Gordon, what's something that people don't know about what you do?
Something people don't know about what I do. Oh, that's a hard one. Well, Go ahead.
I was going to say, we can cut that pause.
If the answer is good, use it. If it's not. Something that folks don't know about what I do is there's a lot of buried complexity in all the, the law is not easy. It's not simple. And what I try to do is sort of boil things down to the most common scenario. But there are often situations where your situation isn't the same as everybody else. And so getting the legal stuff done, there's these outfits out there on the internet, the vending machine operations, I call them, the ones with Zoom and fast and rapid and legal and in the names. I liken that to the vending machine. I sort of think, you don't want to, if you were walking down the street and you saw a vending machine that said haircuts $1 when there's a hole and you put your head in that hole, are you going to do that? I mean, if your head is exactly the same shape as the next person, maybe you get a decent haircut, but maybe you end up missing an ear or something. So that's sort of the way the legal stuff operates too. And I encourage folks to really learn and understand the nuances of the legal stuff that applies to them. And, again, I'm here to educate and inform as well as do for you. So, understanding how copyright law works in the kind of show you're doing, or how defamation and privacy work if you're doing true crime, or if you're doing a scripted show, you've got other concerns about ownership of the chain of title to the screenplay or the script and the recordings and everything else. And these are the kinds of things that non-lawyers aren't trained to think about. So I want to just get people thinking, remember what you're doing, whether you're doing a podcast as a business where you're selling ads or trying to promote, the show is the product essentially, or whether you're selling another product or service using a podcast as a marketing tool, you got to think about it as business, even if it's just a hobby or a side hustle for you. And one of the most important things I think about is, start at the beginning with the people you're working with, the relationships, and build a structure that can then be the container for everything else you're doing.
And I like the fact that you brought that up too about the different kinds of podcasts too, because like you said, a lot of people start as hobbyists, right? A lot of us start I have a passion for something or I have an expertise in something. Some people do solo podcasts, some people do interview podcasts like this one, and dependent on who you interview, what you talk about, and what the hosts talk about, you could be recording a show that you think is completely inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. All of a sudden years come back and then that guest says, hey, I want to go ahead and take this down because I'm doing this, and then you're in a bit of a hot battle there too. So I think that it's really valuable for podcasters to go, even if it is something that's just a bit of a hobby or just me talking about the thing that I'm passionate about, it's important to think about these things, because you could find yourself in a bit of a mess later, or you could find yourself having to owe lots of money in a place that you never really thought you did, simply off of, hey, I have an opinion, I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
Oh, no.
And too many creators make the mistake of waiting too long to start thinking about these things. So that's part of my mission. Is just get the word out, to start thinking about this as a business and implement some of these relatively easy, affordable, accessible strategies to protect yourself. Have an agreement with your co-hosts, what I call a podcast prenup, or an LLC formed as that container I was talking about. Use a release with your guests to make sure that you have their consent. By the way, you have my consent to record and publish this episode, edit it as you need to, as long as you don't trash my reputation in doing so, we're good. Use that guest release, contracts with everybody who works on the show so that you own what they've created or what they're contributing to the thing, because that's not how copyright law generally works. So if you don't have a work made for hire contract with your contractors, they may end up having a say in what you can do with the content. So there's that takedown scenario also. So lots of these relatively little simple things that you can do if you have a roadmap and follow it and take care of business.
Absolutely. Well, Gordon, what would you say, are the top 3 things that podcasters need to consider? Obviously on the front end, there's that prenup, there's possibly developing an LLC, but what are 3 common pitfalls that you see, and how can podcasters avoid them?
Well, I'd say it relates to the LLC and the prenup and everything else, is don't make assumptions about how things are going to operate. Get it in writing. Don't use other people's stuff without their permission. Even though it might be that fair use, which is a whole big It's a defense in copyright law cases here in the U.S., and it may or may not apply. The problem is it's very expensive to prove its fair use if you end up getting sued. So it's better to avoid that problem in the first place. And there's plenty of pod safe or what they call royalty free, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but royalty free content that you can use as music bed or intros and things like that. Don't fall into the trap of it's got to be a famous song by a famous artist, because it'll just be money down the drain. And thirdly, the getting it in writing comes back to, if you're going to be selling products and services and things like that, having clear terms of use and privacy policies and disclaimers and purchase terms and all of those kinds of things. So, getting people to pay you is great, but getting to keep the money they pay you is also important. And too often we have, people with refund policy problems or misleading advertising and promotion, or, that's what people claim. So it's really important to just do what you can to be transparent and put things in writing as much as possible.
Absolutely. And on the music side, I do also have to say thank you for everybody out there listening to us here on PodBiz. And our music is actually composed by John, my co-host. So it is original, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice to have an insider with talent and skill.
Absolutely. It is custom music for our show. So we're very happy that we have that as well, John. You did a great job on that.
Thank you.
Well, Gordon, we also want to ask you, if you had to start over today in terms of educating podcasters and creating a business around the legal aspect of podcasting and teaching podcasters how to set things up properly and legally and how to protect themselves, is there anything you would do differently to grow your business and to educate the creator community faster or in maybe a more efficient or smarter way?
Well, one thing, I was a little late to the game starting and using a podcast and a YouTube channel as my marketing strategy for my courses and other things. I sort of hung around doing, my existing podcast is aimed at other lawyers. And I just thought, oh, that's good enough. I'm a podcaster. But then I suddenly realized, about 3 years ago, I realized I'm really missing an opportunity to share this stuff at that free top of funnel. So I guess I would have wanted to learn more about marketing sooner and implement what I've learned. And right now I'm in the middle of reading StoryBrand 2.0, Build a StoryBrand 2.0 by Donald Miller, and implementing that and making the client, the customer, the hero of the story in the sales process, I think is really, really important. So I would have implemented that sooner too. So.
Absolutely. I think being creator focused is so important. We talk about this to our guests across the industry, right? Whether you're a software company and the podcaster is your audience, or whether you're a podcaster and the audience is your audience, right? It's being service oriented, and that's such a big aspect as well. And I've heard that from many, many people. Everybody wishes they got in a bit earlier. And I also have heard that everybody, the other feedback is that podcasts don't have to last forever, and it's okay to let them end when they do. So get in earlier, get out earlier, I guess is the feedback we keep hearing.
Focus on quality.
Exactly.
Quality over quantity will serve you well, especially in a searchable medium. So
absolutely. Well, Gordon, we ask everybody one last question here at PodBiz. What are you most excited about within the podcast industry coming up?
What am I most excited about? You're asking tough ones. It's hard to put a pin on. I'm bullish on video in podcasting. I know that there's this whole community of folks who really believe that you don't need to do video. And it's true, you don't need to do video, but we have to be honest with ourselves about podcasting. And it is hard for discovery to find new shows that are interesting, that are going to catch, a new viewer or listener's interest. But YouTube has really gotten good at identifying interest areas and things like that. And so I guess I would think of YouTube as sort of a discovery engine for podcasts. Even if you don't end up always listening or watching on YouTube, I think it can help us find them. And so if we can figure out ways to bring our viewers that find us on YouTube into the podcast listening apps and use that as a way of growing our audiences, I think that's really exciting. And more businesses coming into the space using these tools the way we've talked about today. I think that's really exciting because it's organic, earned attention. And that it always lands better, I think, with audiences than paid ads. Not that there isn't a place for paid advertising, but
I agree with that too. And I want to really touch on the video side for a second too, because I think that with YouTube being the number 2 search engine, not just like video search engine, but search engine in general, you have this opportunity to meet people where they're already at. And podcasting is phenomenal. And a lot of us, especially the 3 of us here, have been in the industry where it is very audio centric, but having these tools that are made for searchability, made for even deeper engagement, and made for that scrolling environment. I have shows that I work on with my company where I lead off with video centricity. I'm like, look, even if you don't want to be a host on screen, you can do audiograms, you can do still frames. There's a lot that you can do to take advantage of the medium. And, I tell clients all the time, I go, listen, if you're not doing some sort of video strategy, and at least maybe on one social channel that involves video, you are losing out on a large audience. And by way, then you're losing out on a lot of money that you could be bringing back to your podcast, to your business, or whatever you're pushing. Yeah. So I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I talk about this all the time in terms of audience dev and discoverability with clients. Having a clip strategy is paramount to growth, especially not just with your podcast, but growing your community. So, Gordon, we're so glad you joined us on video today.
Well, me too. On that, if you don't mind, I'll just mention.
Please.
I think that short format works best in video, honestly. Long format is, you're in the car or you're doing your chores or you're working out. You got 30, 40, 50 an hour, hour-long window of time. Having it in the earbuds while you're doing other things is great. But the video strategy, you can focus on either the short clips like you were talking about, Norma Jean, or just make a short format show, which my Legit Podcast Pro show is about 10 minutes long. And the way I treat it is audio first with video. And so I'm talking to the camera, but I'm really thinking about, okay, I'm just talking to somebody who's listening.
Yeah.
And I think that's a useful approach. People will forgive mediocre quality video if the sound is good.
Correct.
So you don't have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars in a TV studio to make a good podcast with video. Do the best you can and improve as you go.
Absolutely. Well, Gordon Firemark, podcaster, entertainment and media attorney, and the podcast lawyer, thank you for joining us on PodBiz.
Thank you. It's been fun.